Like unless I get the chloro or whatever parasite from lettuce, I'm never gonna fit into that dress. Hello knitting friends, welcome back to the channel. I am your host Kristen, and today I've got a traditional podcast episode for you. So a couple of finished objects and a whole bunch of works in progress. So if that sounds like it will be of interest to you, grab something to drink and let's dive in. All right, knitting friends, here we are. It's still summer. It's still hot. It is slightly less hot today than it has been, but I'm really over it. On the plus side, I have a bunch of sort of summery projects to share with you today. So for starters, what I'm wearing is my Sailor Swift top. This is a pattern by Veronica Lindberg, Kutowakika. I believe I knit the size 4 in Knitting for Olive Pure Silk, in Dusty Rose, and pale pink of some kind. However, I have discovered, since it came out too big, that this will shrink up in the washer and dryer. So that is what I have done with this. All right, so I have 2 finished objects for you today. And the first, as you may have guessed, is this adorable little kerchief. This is a little piece that I worked up on my own. There is no pattern. I will put a little B-roll in here so you can get a bit of a better view of it. So I knit this in keeping with the big pointelle trend that we have been seeing just all over the place this summer, and I primarily cast this project on because I needed something to control the crazy summer hair. It has gotten frizzy, wavy. I've always had a lot of hair. I mean, other than just being long, there's just a lot of it. And it is completely out of control this summer. Nothing seems to be working, and I figured, let's just cover it up. So that was the point of this project. My chair keeps spinning. That was the point of this project, and I think it turned out really cute. So to knit this, I used some leftover Illimani Sabri 1. So there's a fingering weight and a worsted weight version of this yarn. So they are both the same blend, but they are 2 different weights. This is the fingering weight version that is an 85%, I believe, organic cotton and a 15% alpaca, which means that it is very light, very summery, but you've got that alpaca in there, which makes it much nicer to knit with. And all told, this ended up using about 178 yards. I was a little worried at the end, you may have seen on Instagram, that I was actually going to run out of yarn. So this was knit from the widest point to the narrowest, which I like because that means you start with the most stitches and gradually your project gets smaller. The problem is if you don't have enough yarn, you're kind of screwed at the end. So if you start at the smallest, this point back here, and just get bigger and bigger, then if you're running out of yarn, you can just stop, and that's your project. But it doesn't work that way when you do it the opposite way. So, but I did not run out of yarn. I ended up with maybe a couple of grams left over at the end, and I am so pleased with how this turned out. So I don't know if I'm going to make this into a pattern. I did take notes the whole time, and I did actually just make charts for myself to follow. If it becomes a pattern, it would have to be charted. In theory. In practice, if you just memorize the pointelle, then you don't really need the chart. But in order to maintain the pattern while decreasing, I've created charts. Again, mostly just for myself to follow because I didn't feel like putting the brain power into memorizing the pattern. The main reason I wanted to go from the widest to the narrowest point is that I did a cute, I don't know if you can see it here, little scalloped edge cast on that I wanted to do. So that way you can start with that decorative cast on, and I could have gone, again, narrowest to widest and done a picot bind off, but I liked this better. So cute little scarf. I'm really excited to have this. Covers up my hair, keeps it out of my way. It's not too hot because it is cotton. We are heading to the beach very soon. I am excited to bring this with me to just keep my hair out of my face. And the thing is that I got like the curtain bangs, in the spring, and I was doing a really good job with always blow drying my hair and styling, and they looked really cute. And then all of the like sort of skills that I accumulated doing that in the spring when it wasn't hot and humid just stopped working when it became summer, and now the bangs are just in my way and annoying me. So love this. Great summer project. Really happy to use the leftovers. I had a little kind of an odd amount left over. I had about a little less than 200 yards of the yarn left over. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it, but this has turned out really cute, and I am really happy with it. So that is my first finished object, just this adorable little kerchief to keep my crazy hair out of the way. Next up, I finished another project that you have seen a lot of because I went through a whole experiment adding bust darts to it, and I am excited to share that my pie camisole is finally done. So I actually had started this last summer. I put it away when the weather got cool and brought it back out for this summer, but it has been slow going because the whole thing is knit on size 1 and 2 needles. It is actually meant to be knit on size 0 and 1 needles. But since I did not have a US 0, I had to go up. And the result is that this is a little big, especially after blocking. So I will put, again, a little bit of B-roll in here so you can see what it looks like. The yarn I used for this is a Mono Yarns Chasky. That is a merino wool, cotton, linen blend. I think it's 60-30-10. If you're wondering what a chasky is, I'm going to put a link in the description box to an article I wrote about the chaskis, who were the Incan fast runner delivery messenger system. That is what it is named after. I don't know why, though. I don't know what this has to do with chaskis. So this project was a long time coming, but it is finally done. Just in time for me to not wear it because I'm not wearing something that is mostly wool in the summer. That is a big no from me. I'm hoping maybe by September, this might be a piece that I am ready to wear. So I did make some modifications to this. I first added short rows to the front neck here. And I did that because in a lot of the photos of the finished projects of this, which is a pattern by Nabita Joret, or Jore, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, there was some kind of like bunching at the front where this ribbing didn't want to lay flat. So instead of having it cut straight across the neck, I added the short rows so that the front neck would dip down a little bit and result in a flatter fit against the collarbones here. And I think that worked well. And of course, I added bust darts to this project. Now, the reason I did that is because this is supposed to be a negative ease project. And as I was working on it, it definitely was. However, as I said, I could not knit this on the specified needles. I simply didn't have them. I guess I could have bought them, but I didn't want to knit anything with US 0 needles. So I did go up a needle size. And after blocking, this no longer really has negative ease. So the bust darts are still working, creating a garment that is equal lengths front and back, and that is good, but I have more space in the front than I really need. So had I realized that it was going to end up losing a lot of that negative ease, I still would have done the bust darts, but I probably would have added just maybe an inch or an inch and a half instead of the full 2 inches. But again, this is entirely my fault because I knew I was going up a needle size and probably was not getting, the specified gauge. So that's really on me. However, it does still work as sort of a nice basic. I don't know that I'll wear it a lot on its own. The armholes are too long. I don't care for the length of the armholes. That may have to do with the blend of the yarn that I'm using. So again, the original pattern is done in a 100% wool. I'm using something that has more cotton and linen, which means that it's more likely to stretch out and not pull back. It doesn't have that elasticity, so the armholes ended up being quite long, which means I've got a lot of risk of a bra showing at the armholes. So I still think it will work as a garment, but I may be wearing it under things like a jacket or a heavier sweater rather than on its own, which is really okay because, again, there's really not a whole lot of occasions where I want to wear a wool or wool blend garment that doesn't have any sleeves. If it is warm enough that I don't want sleeves, I probably also don't want wool. However, as, again, something that I can wear under other pieces, I think it will still work. But that will definitely have to, if I'm not only wearing wool, but I'm wearing it under something else, a jacket or a sweater, we're definitely talking October, November, before this is really probably going to see a lot of wear. Even if it doesn't, though, I really enjoyed doing the experiment with the bust darts. I feel like I learned a lot. So I have knit bust darts before, guided by a pattern, but have not tried to do them and calculate them on my own. So if you missed that, you can go back and watch it, talking about the bust dart thing, horizontal bust darts in this case. I think that was a useful learning experience, even if ultimately my garment didn't turn out quite like I wanted, and I'm not sure how much I'm going to be wearing it. Like I said, I think I learned a lot. I think I will have developed some skills that I'll be able to use moving forward. I've kind of strayed away from negative ease garments because of kind of some of the issues that come with that, right? Garments riding up in the front, kind of an unflattering fit. I think learning to do the bust darts, I'm less concerned about that now. I'm not automatically going to be like, oh, negative ease. No, I don't want that. Finished object, maybe not my super favorite vest going to be in my wardrobe, all the time, but it was a good learning experience, and that is always a good thing. So I have a second finished object for this month, my pie camisole. All right, in terms of works in progress, I am still pretty almost exclusively focused on summer tops. I think that's going to change as soon as my vacation is over. But for now, that is where most of my focus is. So if you saw last week's video, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to bring with me to the beach. I think I have settled on these 2 summer top whips. Ma'am. And that is primarily because one is definitely the more, brain power project. And then the other one, the point at which it is at, I have pretty much memorized it, and it's going to be largely mindless knitting. So I do think they're going to be good for sort of a balance of projects at the beach. And if I do not finish them in August, they're not going to get done because, like I said, once we get back from vacation, I start kind of getting into fall mode, especially in terms of my knitting. And even if the weather doesn't cooperate, I will be so over summer projects that even if I could potentially wear these in September, I'm just not going to have the drive to work on them in September when I'd rather be doing a sweater. So I've got to get them done in August, and that is pretty much why they're both going to come to the beach with me. So this is a little bit of an acquisition. Didn't think this through. I did not have this in last month's podcast, but I'm not going to do like a separate acquisitions because it's going to feed right into our whips. So we're just going to do acquisition and whip all in one, which is that I have started my Isabel top. This is a pattern by the Knit Pearl Girl, Sophie, and I have gotten the yarn for it, which it turns out is the same yarn, the same color that I used for this top. I did not do that on purpose. I did not realize until it arrived. This looks familiar. The good news is I didn't really have any of this left over from this project, so it's not like I ordered extra and I didn't need to. But had I just remembered that, I would have gone for a different color. I do like this color. I just, like to try new colors. Anyway, so this is the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk in the Dusty Rose, and this is where I am on my Isabel top. So it doesn't look like much, but this is actually the whole first chart and the back shaping, or the back shoulder shaping. And now I get to knit straight in this pattern for, I want to say 3 inches before I start some armhole shaping. And this is pretty easy to memorize. This one, I'm probably going to have to just double check occasionally. The center, why don't I want to focus today? This little center pointel, which is also over here, I'm probably going to have to come back and check that occasionally in the chart, but all of the other stitch patterns are very easy to memorize. So this pattern is very chart heavy. What I absolutely love about the Knit Pearl Girl is that she uses actually the same charting program I do, which is Stitch Fiddle, and she gives you direct links to the Stitch Fiddle files, obviously not editable, but Stitch Fiddle comes with a tracker so that you can follow along easy and mark. You don't have to you could take the pattern and import it into Knit Companion and then it has its tracker. But if you don't want to do all that, you can just click the link directly to her chart files and there's a tracker built in there, which I really love and appreciate. I really haven't gotten very far, but that means that I have lots of work to keep me busy while I am at the beach. And one thing I will say, I feel like this yarn, as you can see here, is curling up on itself a lot, which I didn't really notice previously using it. So I'll just hold it up and let it spin itself out. But it's annoying, and I don't know what, like I said, I didn't notice that before. And I don't care for it. It's not the end of the world, but. So I believe this pattern has a lot of sizes. I want to say she's got a 2-inch grade between sizes. So I want to say most patterns have kind of around a 4-inch difference between sizes. I would say is the most common. But in this case, she's got 2 inches between each size, and then she's got a ton of sizes. And her sizes are designated by letters. So I want to say I'm knitting the size E. I went back and forth between whether I wanted the D or the E and ultimately settled on the E, and hopefully I have made the correct choice. We shall see. I don't know at which point, for the first part, I can definitely just, I could change my mind at some point. The first bunch of sizes are relatively the same for a little bit and I could kind of change my size, but I don't know. I think I'm going to stick with what I got and hopefully that is the correct choice. I do want this to be kind of an easy breezy. It's not something I would want to be very close fitting. So since I was between sizes, ultimately decided to go up rather than down. I was very excited for this to get gauge on the US 3 needle because the needle called for in the pattern was a US 2.5, which I just don't have. I don't have that size, and I don't think it comes in the interchangeables fitting the same cord as the other ones. And I also just didn't want to have to buy another size. So pattern calls for US 2.5. I got gauge on the 3, which is excellent news. I am planning to do the fastened version of this, which on the downside means I'm never joining in the round. But it has such a cute, I'll put a photo in here, such a cute little decorative button front that I think it'll be worth it. But yeah, it is a lot of flat knitting, so we don't love that. But I think it's going to be worth it to have the cute decorative front panel or front button fastenings. So this is my first work in progress, my Isabel top. Haven't gotten very far, but that means I'll have lots to work on at the beach. And only slightly disappointed that I accidentally picked the same color yarn. All right, my next work in progress, I had not even started as of the last podcast. So this is the story of my long-suffering Purl Soho Santalina yarn, which I have tried in multiple projects. So I first tried using it, and I just love this color. It's the green agave. It's beautiful. First I tried in sort of a self-drafted sleeveless summer top design that just, it wasn't working. The stitch pattern was hard on my hands with this yarn, and ultimately I didn't think I had enough of the yarn. Then I moved on to try to do the Penelope top, which is a pattern by Sari Nordland, and as far as I could tell, I had gauge, but it was just coming out enormous, especially the armholes. I did the armhole pickup twice trying to get it right, and it was just crazy. So I gave up on that, and now we have our third and hopefully final project for this yarn. So this is the Winona top. This is a pattern by Victoria Chaplina, I want to say. My Charming Wool, I want to also say. I'll put links in the description box, of course. And it is a lovely sleeveless top pattern with a nice but easy to memorize lacy design, as you can see, along the front neck and along the back armholes and down the sides. So this is, knock on wood, going pretty well. I have just joined in the round, which means that hopefully this is going to be smooth sailing until the end. It has some optional waist shaping. I'm going to skip that. Then it's just working the body straight, finishing with the ribbing, and then doing some armhole trim. So I did make a slight modification to this, which was that I shortened the armhole. So the finished armhole on this, was supposed to be something like 9 inches, which I knew was going to be way too long. Was gonna, especially in this yarn, I'm sure this is going to grow lengthwise. So I shortened the armhole, which in and of itself is not much of a modification. However, because I shortened it, the front neck shaping was not going to be finished before I needed to stop the straight armhole knitting and start the armhole shaping. So I just modified a little bit the shaping on the front neck, and for the last, I want to say like 6 rows of the neckline increases, I increased on both right and wrong side in order to get the correct stitch counts before, joining the left and right front, continuing to do the armhole shaping before the front and back were joined. So my front neckline shaping is just going to be, it's going to look slightly different. Instead of a straight V, it's a little more rounded at the center because of increasing on both right and wrong sides. So if you are just increasing on every right side row, it's going to be more like this. Once you start increasing on both, it's going to start coming in like this a little bit faster. So I did do that. I hope that's going to work out. The tricky thing with this style of shaping is that it's really hard, if you're making modifications, to get the front and the back to match, because, instead of both front and back starting like right here at the top of the shoulder, the back is starting here, And the first part of the front that you're knitting is actually going over the top of the shoulder. It's not just going straight down. So it can be tricky to make sure your front and back match. And I hope I have done it correctly, but we'll see. So I don't remember the size I'm knitting. I want to say the 2 because that's exactly how much I had enough yarn for. It should fit with a decent amount of ease. I was considering, again, I was kind of between the 2 and the 3. In this case, I went with the 2 because that's what I had yarn for. I'm sorry, she's playing with the cord. So I've just, again, joined in the round. Great, this is going to be great beach knitting because, as I said, I've got this lacy pattern. Looks more complicated than it is. I've got it memorized. And I don't need to consult. There is a little chart. I don't have to consult that anymore. What is tricky now about knitting in the round is that it's very obvious. It's like a 4-row repeat for the chart. It's very obviously when you're working back and forth, what's a wrong side row, so you're not doing anything, and what's a right side row. Once you're working in the round, everything's a right side row, so you have to actually kind of look at your knitting to figure out what you did on the last row and whether you're doing a right side or a wrong side row. That will be a little trickier to get into a groove with, but I don't think it will take too long. It's just a matter of interpreting how it looks, always working from the right side, and recognizing, okay, this is where I need to do the, the eyelet row, or this is where I need to do the knit into the row below or whatever. So hoping to make lots and lots of progress on this on the way to the beach and at the beach. I don't know though, because my older cat, as you probably remember, has a heart problem. He takes medicine twice a day. And we went to the vet and we're like, can he skip his medicines for a week? Will he be okay? And she said no. She's like, you can board him. It's like, I don't want to board him. He's going to think that we've abandoned him. He's orange. He's not that bright. I don't want to do that. I want him to spend a week in a cage with, a stranger giving him medicine. But again, because he's got to have medicine twice a week and he doesn't like the medicine, so he hides, we couldn't exactly have like a pet sitter come twice a day to hunt him down and give medicine. So long story short, we have to bring the cat with us to the beach. And of course, we have to bring the dog to the beach. And of course, we have to bring ourselves and all of our stuff to the beach. We're going to have a very packed car. And I don't know how much space I am actually going to have to knit. But this is coming with me. And hopefully that means I'm going to get a lot done. And then my last whip is not coming to the beach with me because it is very fall oriented, and I'm going to keep that summer spirit alive, I think, just a little bit longer. But I do have one more whip to show you, which is that I have started a new test knit cardigan. So this is definitely getting all the attention when I get back from the beach because it has a deadline in September, and I'm going to try to put some good work on it before we leave. But it's not going to be coming with me. So this is the very beginnings of the Honey Cardigan by Woolbird or Brianna Mason. And this is going to be so cozy for early fall. Probably I'm not going to be able to really wear this in early fall, but it's going to be a nice project to get that fall vibe going, even if I'm not really going to be ready to wear it. So the yarn I'm using for this is Valley Yarns Westfield. This is 60% extra fine merino, 20% silk, 20% yak. It just, I think, has a color number. Oh, stone. The colorway is stone. I originally started using this for my Roma cardigan that, as I mentioned last week, I for some reason cast on the completely wrong size. It was coming out absolutely enormous. And then I had already knit the whole yoke before I realized that, and I really didn't want to do it again. So I just decided to unfortunately scrap that one, but I am going to reuse the yarn. So this is another project, I guess, using this shaping that is all the rage now. So we're starting at the back neck, shoulder shaping, then we're going to pick up here and work the fronts. Again, this is a cardigan, so we are not at any point joining in the round, but it is so nice to knit with wool again on a larger needle. So it's it's a US 7 needle. It feels enormous compared to what I have been knitting on, which is like, let's see, a 3, a 4, and a 2. So and it is lovely, easygoing so far. So there she is. There's the monster. I don't know what's with her today. She's not coming to the beach. Maybe she knows and she's mad about it. I don't know. But anyway, this is very easygoing so far. And the only modification I am making is that in the pattern, we are cabling to the right, and all of them are cabled to the right. There's no like mirror cables or anything. Everything's cabling to the right. I switched it to be cabled to the left because as someone who does cabling without a cable needle, I find cabling to the left without a cable needle much easier. So that is what I'm doing. You can see this yarn, it has nice stitch definition. Cables look nice and even. Has been lovely. And now I've basically got the pattern memorized. So again, this is a very chart heavy project, particularly for this part where we're shaping. So we're, again, increasing right side and wrong side rows, both sides, and we want to increase in pattern. But now that I've got the pattern memorized, I don't even have to look at the chart anymore. I just need to make sure I am paying attention to when I am done with the increases so I don't end up making, more increases than I need to. So love this, easy to memorize. I have knit and completed one pattern from Brianna Mason before. I also tried to do the Fleur Cami, but that was a whole saga with the Lindy chain yarn. Speaking of which, in last week's video, I announced the giveaway winners for 2 different giveaways that I have done recently. So don't forget to check that out if you want to see if you won. I do plan to return to the Fleur Cami next summer and maybe make it as a little beach cover up, but her patterns are very well written. Lots of charts. I love a good chart. So happy with this so far. The yarn, I did have some issues with this when I was working on the Roma cardigan. Nothing wrong with the yarn itself, like the knitting with it or anything, but I found that it had a lot of knots. I don't know if that's going to continue to be the case. It could have just been 1 or 2 balls that I had. I don't know. We'll find out. It's easier to deal with in a project like this. The Roma cardigan is an all-over slip stitch pattern. So having to add new yarns frequently while working a slip stitch pattern was very annoying. This is just regular knitting, so it won't be as big of a deal if there are knots, but something to keep in mind. I have, with the Valley Yarns Westfield, found quite a few knots in at least a couple of balls. I think I have used it before, though, for a project, the baby bear suit, and I don't recall having that issue, but it was much smaller, so maybe I just didn't need that many balls of yarn. I don't remember. All right, but that is the last whip that I have been working on recently. New test knit, really cute. So happy to be using wool again. All right, I wanted to throw a little bit of sewing in today, but unfortunately sewing has not been going well. So I sewed all of this, which I know is hard to see, but this is the Hill collarless dress. It's a pattern by Seamwork. Lovely. It's this beautiful like teeny gingham. It doesn't fit. It's too narrow in the waist. Which is a problem I'm continually running into as I get further and further into middle age, and I'm not a fan of it at all. And this was a little surprising to me because Seamworks patterns have always run large for me, but not this one. So, unfortunately, it's lovely too. It's got pockets, and I had done most of it, and it's just it's not going to button at the waist, at least without gapping and looking like I'm squeezing myself into the dress. So I don't know what I'm going to do now. I asked my sister if she was interested in the dress, but she said no. She's not a gingham or plaid fan. It's not done, and once I realized it wasn't going to fit, I just stopped. But I told my sister, if you like it, I'll finish it for you. But she said no. That's the candle lid that the cat found. So I don't know. I'm really bummed. I really like this fabric. This is from Matchy Matchy Sewing Club. I think it's linen. I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head. It looks really nice and neat. It's got this nice like back shaping and little shoulder darts there. And I did the whole bias binding. I hate bias binding. I mean, I love the way it looks. I just hate doing it, but it looks really neat. But yeah, it's not going to fit, and I'm not sure what I can salvage from the fabric now. I might be able to cut some stuff out of the skirt, but because it's not like a single, like back piece for the skirt, I don't know. I'm really bummed. So, sewing fail, unfortunately. There's no easy way to like let some of the waste out, and of course I finished my seams because I was being responsible, but yeah, there's no easy way to like let a whole lot out at the waist. It wouldn't be enough, so that's a bummer. So now what I'm working on are a pair of Danny pants. It's a pattern by, I want to say, True Bias. The Danny pant, it also comes in shorts. It comes in 2 different waistlines, so I want to make both, but these are the pants. I am using this very wrinkled, I think it's a linen, sort of slubby denim looking linen from Matchy Matchy that I got on sale. And so the first thing I'm making is the pants with the zip fly. And then I want to make the shorts with just the complete elastic waist, no zip fly. So I've got the back pocket attached. This fabric, it's really like shifty, which I'm not, like linen is usually a little bit more structured, but it's really shifty. And so a lot of the pieces I cut are really crooked. I'm hoping, if I can fix that a little bit with like, in the sewing and assembly process, if I've got kind of a curvy edge, we can kind of cover that up. But yeah, the fabric has been really shifty. But I've got the back pocket on, and I've got the inseam side pockets sewn in to the fronts and the backs. And like, it's been fine to sew with. Like, I haven't found it like super slippery to sew with or anything. It's just that the fabric just doesn't want to stay on grain. And so, especially with some of the smaller pieces, the cutting did not go very well, and it's a little wonky. But these are kind of a really casual pant. I'm hoping maybe to get these done before we head out to the beach, because I think they'll be really comfortable. It is a little bit, I don't know if you can tell, it's a little bit see-through. I think it'll be fine, again, for a casual beach kind of pant, but I wanted to do the zip fly, so we've got a little bit more structure in the front. So we'll see. I also cut out the pieces for the shorts. I'm wondering if I could get them out of that dress. I don't know. Seems like a shame because it's probably like 2.5 yards of the dress fabric, and I don't need nearly that much to make a pair of shorts, so it seems a little wasteful, but otherwise that dress nothing's going to happen to it. Like, unless I get the chloro or whatever parasite from lettuce, I'm never going to fit into that dress. But, it's already been cut into so many pieces, there's not a ton I can do with the fabric. So, I don't know. Sewing hasn't been going great, but wish me luck with some casual beach pants. Maybe this will be the winner. All right, friends, thank you so much for joining me for today's video. Links to everything that I talked about will be found in the description box down below, along with some affiliate links for Pearl Soho and Knit Picks. So if you're going to do any yarn shopping and you use those, the channel will get a little kickback, and that is greatly appreciated. Thank you again for joining me for this video. If you found it amusing or entertaining, I hope you will give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. New knitting videos here every Saturday. If you're looking for me on social media, you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Media Peruana, and I will see you soon in another video. Bye.